Let's look at 5 property income strategies. Now, these are strategies that anyone can try, and a lot of them that I've done myself. The first one is very simple, is your buy-to-let. That's buying one apartment with one tenant. You've also got multi-let. This is when you're buying, like in Dominic's case, you're buying 5 units in one go, or you're buying a number of units. I'm looking currently at about 8 or 10 units in Berea in one block. There's one owner who's selling 10 of his units. That would be an example of a multi-let. You're buying multiple purchases at once. Consulting, which is, I think, a very easy way to get some income in your property business. Flipping and developments. Okay. So when you're thinking of property as an income strategy, you've got here your 2 key buckets. You've got your buy and hold strategy, where you buy, put a tenant in, your rent covers your bond, and you're left with a passive income. That's where your financial freedom sits. On the right-hand side, your flipping or your buy and sell strategies are very interesting for generating capital and lump sums of profit. So let's start with the buy-to-let, which is an example of your passive income strategy. Here I've got an example. This is a property in the northwest in Klerksdorp. You can see here that it's asking price of 220, 2-bedroom apartment. It's 2-bed, 1.5 bath, 89 square meters. I did some research and I went through a whole bunch of different properties, and I found that the average rental for a 2-bed, 1-bath in that area is about 3,175. So my first thing that I would do, if you guys have seen any of my other content, is I take 3,175 times 12, divided by 220, divided by the purchase price times 100. That gives me my gross yield indicator. That's 17% gross yield. Anything above 15% is likely to be cash flow positive, although I more like to work on a 20% margin. So off the bat, looks like an interesting deal. Let's look at a more detailed cash flow analysis of this specific property. So first of all, the rental on this deal is 3,175. The expenses, and I've just put them all together into one line item, is 2,100. So that includes the bond on a purchase of 190, your levies, your rates and taxes, your provisions like maintenance, vacancies, management fee. All of that inclusive is 2,100, which means that we've got a Tricia type investment. We've got a cash flow positive situation where the inflow is greater than the outflow. The return on investment on this specific investment is 17%, which is great. And what's so nice about this kind of property is that you don't need a lot of capital to do this deal. The chances are you're going to get a 90, maybe even 100% loan to value from the bank if you've got a good affordability and you've got a good credit score, which means you need to put maybe 10% deposit down and maybe another 20,000 Rand for transfer fees and bond registration costs. So let's say 10% deposit plus the 20 grand, you're in the deal for 40,000 and you're making 1,000 Rand cash flow per month. And I know that most of us can't retire on 1,000 Rand cash flow. Obviously not, but you can maybe buy one of those every 3 months, and at the end of the year, you've got 4 units. And then the next year you can buy a multi-let, and that's how you can slowly but surely grow your wealth in your portfolio. The multi-let, now this is for me a more advanced strategy. Once you've done a couple of buy-to-lets, you might venture into this strategy because it's a much better return on your time. So here's an example of a multi-let in Cape Town, Dunoon. It's a 16-bedroom house going for 850. Now the numbers on this one are quite interesting. The rent is 24,000 for those 16 rooms. The expenses are quite high, and the reason the expenses are high is because I've put a very large vacancy provision in place. Dunoon is quite a low economic area in Cape Town, and because of that reason and because of what I read on the TPN report, I felt it was just needed to put a little bit more of a buffer in place. So that's the thing, guys. You can invest in higher risk areas as long as you include that risk in your numbers and the return justifies the risk. So with a 30% additional provision above what I would normally put, it's still cash flowing at 3,000 Rand, and the return would be 11%. Now, 11% to invest, I mean, granted, it is a 30% additional provision budget, which is quite conservative. So without that, the return will probably be about 25%. But you've always got to look at area, return, and risk. Does the return justify the risk and in the area that you're investing in? But this is a great way in which you can build your portfolio a bit quicker. Now you're building 16 tenants in one purchase as opposed to one tenant. Consulting. Now, a lot of times when you think about property, you think of buying and selling a property, or buying and renting a property. But there's lots of ways that one can make an income off property that doesn't require you even purchasing it. Here are some consulting services that one can venture into in property. One, business coaching. Right, that's one of my income streams. I do a lot of property consulting. Jaden and Dominic, who are on the call today, are students of mine. And I charge them a fee for one-on-one time with me, and what I do is I help them buy a property in a good investment property. And that's a way in which I can earn a bit of money, and I use that money to put a deposit down on a flat in Berea, or I use that money to save up to buy a multi-let. So the key thing is any consulting services or any time that you sell in the property space, you reinvest that and use that to invest in properties, right? We want to be building that balance sheet. That's the key thing. Property sourcing. Now, you obviously need to make sure you've got your legal documents in place. You don't want to be seen as an illegal trader by the Estate Agents Affairs Board. But what you can do is if you can find a distressed seller and a hungry investor and you bring the two together, you can make a commission off that transaction. So you're playing almost like an estate agent where you refer a seller to a buyer and the buyer gives you, 20 or 30,000 Rand or whatever it is for that deal to go through. So it's you finding an investment opportunity for an investor and then selling it to that investor for a fee. You don't need to buy the property, you just need to invest time finding a good deal. Online marketing. One of the businesses that my partner and I, Apollo, who's also on the call, do is we help property investors find distressed leads. One of our clients is quite a prominent businesswoman who doesn't necessarily have the time to go and find distressed leads, so she just pays us a monthly retainer, and we do Google advertising and Facebook marketing and provide her with 10 distressed sellers per month. She then takes those distressed sellers and she then sells it to her investors, or she does deals with them, or whatever it is. But that's another way in which you can make some additional revenue. All of these professional skills, if you've got an accounting background or CA background, if you've got some construction skills, if you've got an architecture or draftsman background, interior design, all of these different skills, you can sell your time, your unique specialization to then make an income off your property business, right? So on one hand, you've got your properties that are generating rental as an income stream, but then you can also be an accounting professional that is selling your services as an accountant to property entrepreneurs. So here's an example of the property coaching. So my program is a 10 sessions program. Takes students through all of these different steps, and then I take the profits that I make from that business and I reinvest into my property portfolio. It's a great way in which I can use my time to still make income off the property industry. Here is the online marketing. So our company is called Evolve-Digital, and we basically do a whole lot of online services, building websites, doing online marketing, all of that stuff. It's really not that hard, and there's quite a big market for it. So maybe just think to yourself, what services or what skills do you have that you could sell to property entrepreneurs to be able to generate another income stream? Because remember, it's multiple streams of income. Buying and holding property is just one. We've got to be looking for multiple ones. Okay, the flipping strategy, or as I sometimes call it, the BRS, the buy, renovate, and sell strategy, is very sexy. You get to go into a rundown property and you get to sort of visualize and picture what this property is going to be like, and then you get to renovate it back to that state. Here's an example of two students of mine in the East Rand who did a live-in flip. Now, a live-in flip is a great way to get started. Essentially what they did is they found this townhouse that was a little bit run down, and it was old. They moved into the property. They lived there for a while, and while they were living there, the husband, who's quite handy, he just started to fix things. He fixed the kitchen, he replaced the bathroom, he made it look really nice. His wife is a little bit of an interior designer, so their combined skills, his handiwork and her creativity, they were able to make this, which I think is pretty damn impressive. I think if I were still living in Joburg and me and my girlfriend had to see this property, we'd be really interested in making an offer. This looks absolutely fantastic. Now, there's no risk for them in this because they moved into the property, so they were living there. If they weren't able to sell, they could just stay living there for a bit longer. And they were able to, over time, renovate it and bring it to such a great condition. I haven't got the numbers for this specific deal because they haven't sold the property yet. It's on the market for, I think it's 1.6 or 1.7 if I'm not mistaken. As soon as the property sells, what I'll do is I'll put the numbers up and we can look at it. But they're probably looking at a profit of about 150,000 rand, which is great. And they're reinvesting that into their next flip. So what they're doing is they're moving out of this one back to their parents' house, which I know it doesn't sound glamorous, but they've said to me, why would we go and rent something if we can stay with our parents for free and we can keep reusing our income to build our balance sheet? You can see they're starting to think like the wealthy now. And they're going to move into their next live-in flip. And they're going to live in I think it's is it in Parkhurst or Parkview, somewhere there. They found the property, they've negotiated the price, they've already gone there with the builder. So they're going to go into their next live-in flip and just keep rinsing and repeating until they've built a capital pot that they can use to invest in a multi-let. A more advanced strategy is your commercial and your development space. Now, in all honesty, I haven't really played in this market much, so I don't know too much about the ins and outs of this. But you can do things like rezoning of a property to make it commercial and sell it to a commercial company who will then build on it. You can subdivide one piece of land into two pieces and then sell off one and build on the other. You can build or develop industrial, residential, commercial. There's lots of different avenues. What I can say is if you're interested in this type of investing, this is at the top of the ladder of the property ladder. Right at the bottom, you've got your buy to let and flipping. And then you've got your multi-lets, and then you've got your, and so you go up, but right at the top is your development. So I wouldn't say you jump into this kind of strategy up front. I've been doing property for about 10 years, and I haven't touched any of this kind of stuff yet. So, if you've got a family member or if you know someone who is a developer, it's maybe a way to get started. Okay, so the key thing that I want you to take from this is that you can earn multiple streams of income through property. So if I just look at my own case, I've got a couple of multi-lets that bring in a passive income. I've got a couple of buy-to-lets. My book, Financial Freedom Through Property, I get royalties from that. I've got this online university called Property Bootcamp where we sell courses, the coaching, and then the Evolve Digital. So here you can see, let's call it 5 or 7 income streams just off the property industry. So I want you to be thinking, as I'm building my balance sheet, my balance sheet is built by properties, by buying assets. But my income statement is built by selling my services, by having side hustles and additional income streams. And that's how we've got to be thinking. We've got to build our income stream and our income statement because that feeds into our purchasing power to build our balance sheet and to achieve greater wealth. So those are 5 property investment and income strategies that one can use. Buy-to-let, multi-let, consulting or selling of your time, flipping, and then your advanced, development. And Are you tired of having more month at the end of your money? It's time to venture into property investing. And although it may seem scary, don't worry. We've created tons of resources to help you get started. From tools that help you analyze deals to online training courses to one-on-one specialized coaching. Click the link in the comments below and get started today.